Hello everyone, it's Jeff again, and today I am in Chester, Illinois with the American Queen in port, and I would like to take you on a small tour of this town and tell you a story that I think is very interesting. The first stop on this tour that I would like to make is the old opera house in Chester that was built for the start of the opera season in 1887. Around 1910, it was converted to play silent movies, and it operated as a movie house until around 1930. A very interesting part of this story is the theater never had sound equipment installed, so basically after 1930 it went out of business. In the early teens, a young man named Elzie Chrysler Cigar took a job as an usher, his first job at the Opera House. He didn't work at the theater for very long because he wasn't fond of the uniforms that the ushers had to wear, but he was intrigued by the man who owned the theater. The man who owned the theater was William Schuchard, and his love of hamburgers was legendary, and it made quite an impression upon the young man who he hired to be an usher. The man at the right of this photograph is Schuchard, the guy that owned the movie theater. And the lady in the center, her name is Dora Pascal. She owned the local grocery store in Chester. And she was known for being a very dowdy dresser. As a matter of fact, the women in town made fun of her. They said she didn't wear dresses, she wore sacks. And she always wore her hair in a bun at the back of her neck, and she had very big feet, and she was a very gangly person. And the women in town teased her a lot about how she had big feet, and she always wore the same dress, and she always had the same hairstyle, and she took a lot of abuse. The man on the left, Frank Feigl, this is the only known photograph ever taken of him. Now you can go online and you can see a lot of photographs of him, but they're not real. They're faked. This is the only known photograph of him. And he was a local laborer in Chester, and he worked sometimes as a bartender in the local beer hall, and he worked sometimes as a day laborer, but he didn't ever really do too much. He spent most of his time asleep in a chair in front of the saloon if the weather allowed, and the children, when they got out of school, if he was still asleep in the chair, they would throw firecrackers under his chair, or they would yell loudly as they ran by and wake him up. He loved the children in the town, and they loved him. He was a town character, much loved by all the children, and he lived with his mother. When his mother died, he continued on living in the little house until the day he died in 1947. Frank Feigl, or Fiegel, was known for being a brawler. He tended bars sometimes at the local beer parlor, and everyone liked him, but when crossed, he was known to be a skilled fighter. There was many a traveling salesman or a otherwise rowdy visitor to the who found himself quite handily tossed out of the small saloon by Frank. His ability to take on other people and toss them out of the bar was legendary. Even as his years advanced, he was still able to handily take care of much younger men and toss them out onto the wooden sidewalk in front of the bar. Sometime around 1917, Elsie Cigar finally left the little town of Chester and went to Santa Monica, California. He started a comic strip about that time, which he named Thimble Theater, and it limped along for a few years until in 1929, he came up with an idea for a new character that he wanted to add to his comic strip. The new character would be named Popeye, and it would be based on the guy that sat in his hometown at the door of the saloon every day, Frank Fiegel. And Dora, the lady that owned the grocery store, Olive Oil. The always dowdy dressed woman who never wore a dress, she always wore a sack and always had the same hairstyle and was tall and thin with legendary big feet. And the last person, the man who owned the theater in Chester, he was now Wimpy, the person that was always eating a hamburger. All of these characters were based on real people who lived during the childhood of the person that created the comic strip in the tiny town of Chester, Illinois. Dora Pascal died in 1953 and is buried right here in Chester. Frank Rocky Fiegel died in 1947 and is buried only a few short steps away. William Schukert made it until 1941 and ended up with the strangest headstone of them all. Why he ended up with Popeye as his headstone, no one seems to know. I kinda think it should have been Wimpy, with a hamburger, of course. I leave you now on the outskirts of Chester, Illinois, as I continue on with my journey to Kentucky to deliver my empty paint cans. Remember, everybody, be good to each other, do good deeds, think good thoughts, and I will see you on the next adventure.